Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the RPG Think Tank, where we brainstorm lots of ideas relating to RPGs. This week, we're going to be carrying on our sort of brainstorming of our sort of 1940s necromancy setting. I think Alex came up with the name of Necro-Tech, which I quite like. The Necro-Tech we'll go with for tonight anyway. So we're going to be talking about that as the main chunk of the meeting. But before we dive into that, let's do some check-ins. Mark, would you like to take us through those?
Yeah, sure thing. So I will start with myself and then work our way around the group. So my week has been off work, and I have been spending the time catching up with 66. Getting you up to date with that. So we're now on to doing a final draft of the paths. So we're probably over halfway now for that, so it should be coming quite soon. And writing up a Pathfinder campaign, which is starting this weekend. And otherwise relaxing. So generally pretty good. Hand over now. So Pat, how's your week been? Pat. Microphone Pat.
So it wasn't bad. We shot my film on Tuesday, so that was fun. We started at 9 in the morning and ended at 12:30 at night. Pretty much were working solidly through the day. So we had some really good guys there who really were absolutely brilliant. It was an absolute pleasure. Apart from that, I've been in normal work, so I haven't really had much time to do anything else this week, fortunately.
Oh, cool. I'd love to hear about the film later on. I should chat about that. Josh, what about you? How's your week been?
Work. Followed by more work, followed by freezing at work, followed by more dust at work. So pretty much average week, except where has our summer gone? I mean, yes, we were complaining about the heat this time a month ago, but, where has it gone? It's just been far too cold this week. In serious news, me and Alex have been throwing ideas back and forth. Mostly backstory things at this point, some new weapon tech, stuff like that, and a few ideas for the pre-gen. Yeah, that's pretty much been my week.
Cool, great. And Alex, it leads on neatly to you. How's your side of the writing going?
Yeah, I've been sort of filling in the document itself. Although interestingly, sort of sitting there working on it as a storm rolled over me, so I don't know if that was prophetic or not. Other than that, just been building furniture mostly, still moving in. Only been here a month and I'm still moving in, but hey.
Yeah, I think I'm still partly packed up when I moved in here a year ago. Chris, this week, do you have any new wonderful books for us, or is that next week?
Almost. This week has been a layout on Road to Petra because we got the proofreading finished. So I've been doing that, laying it all out. That's just about done. I just need to go through it tomorrow with a fine-tooth comb and, just really tighten everything up. But that's basically done. So that will be submitted to print over the weekend, and so hopefully about 2 weeks before we get a proof copy of that.
Oh,
and also all the sort of the other books, they just need a little bit of tidying up, so that might happen over the weekend, and I've started work on that already. So hopefully by Monday or Tuesday we will have the final PDFs of everything made up and submitted. So then it's just a couple of weeks before we go to print.
Excellent, that's great to hear. So, before we do that, we've got to do some more work on the 1940s Necro-Tech. So handing over really to Chris there to get us started and to carry on this discussion.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, so 1940s Necro-Tech. So this is the setting where it's a sort of 1940s, pretty much like us. 1948 is sort of the year we're sort of aiming at, and it's where they've come up with a technology which seems to provide clean and free energy, but actually turns out to be powered by souls. And the world is just sort of learning about this, and there's all sorts of strange things starting to happen. So it's sort of like Yeah, so a bit more advanced technology-wise, and there's a bit of magic and nasty stuff going off as well. But other than that, fairly similar 1948 to our 1948. Now, this week's challenge was we shared out a picture, which is of sort of like an American soldier in a blasted battlefield, seems to be doing something with magic or energy, and then that's all there was to it. And the question is, we want to know who were they, what were they doing, where are they, those sorts of questions, a bit of backstory to this picture, and then we're going to take those ideas and feed them into the world setting. So we posted this out on social media as normal, on Reddit, on Twitter, on G+. So on Reddit, Josh, you were looking at Reddit, so what did we get on that?
We got two absolutely fantastic responses, which is great because I'm still half expecting us to put it up and then silence and tumbleweeds, but that's just my opinion of Reddit. Yeah, we got a fantastic response by Jester Rain, which was a monologue by a character which seems to believe that this photo of this otherworldly creature is a cover-up. This photo shouldn't exist, and he's seen this creature, and he's convinced that people don't believe him, but here it is. There's something quite wrong with the creature itself, like the uniform isn't a proper American uniform. And the quote being used, I remember the heated discussions about that photo, specifically about many elements that didn't match. For example, the uniform of the soldier, his vampiric appearance, which understandably resulted in the photo being called faker than the rumour about the USA government being manipulated by otherworldly entities. So I really like that. So I responded with, I really like that idea, and he responded under that with, and don't you dare call me Tinfoil Hood. My body was nearly ripped in half by, I shit you not, vampire 2 months ago. Oh, so you agree there's something else fishy out there? And he's not quite sure how to react to that being agreed with. We also got a second response from a user named Dark Moonic. I can't read. Sorry, Dark Moonic Broken Pillars. I can't read it. Sorry, someone's going to kill me for that one. It's about a third nuclear bomb developed by the Germans, where one brave vampire lich serving for the red, white, and blue was able to contain the blast of the bomb in his hands. It's rumoured that to this day, in a deep laboratory somewhere in a government facility, that patriotic vampire lich still has that bomb, and science is trying to figure a way to contain it. He sacrificed his power and day-to-day life for America. So there's an alternative version there where the vampire is actually a good guy, not some otherworldly monster trying to kill people.
I like that. It's a different take, actually. Yeah, say there's a reason it's in a uniform. It's because it's serving its country, and so that's a nice take. It's one I don't think we'd really touched on that idea before. That there could be some of these sort of supernatural, magical things which actually are working for the government, which are the good guys, and possibly maybe the players fall in under that category. So that was interesting, and the first response, yeah, a lot about conspiracies and things going off. So hush hush. So this is a sort of a nice thing because I think that works very well with some of the things we've talked about, having secret societies and secret government missions and things like that. So I like both of those responses. So thank you very much, Reddit and Josh. We've got a couple of sort of responses on just find it, here we go. On social media. Richard commented on the picture and realm setting as a whole, that was sort of like, he finds it great that we're trying to make nuclear power and weapons even more creepy than they already are, which I quite like, because we've touched with the idea that it's sort of some connection with nuclear power and because of the coincidence of nuclear bombs and things of this time period. So I like that idea, something we can build on and actually make something you know, make nuclear power even worse. So I like that one. And just a look, quick response from Twitter. Of course, a quick response from Twitter because it's 140 characters, can't say much. But actually saying, you know, using the phrase zombie mage, which is sort of a nice idea that actually is sort of zombie, but which has actually got some powers, which has got some different capabilities than just the normal brain dead flesh eating thing. So nice idea there. Thank you very much to Richard and Wikimancer for those ideas. So let's, what ideas have we got for this picture? Oh, for those of you watching, I should be sharing out a link in a moment so you can have a look at the picture. Pat, I believe you've got some thoughts on the monster, or possibly not a monster.
Yes, I do. First of all, I just wanted to quickly go back to the idea of it being the thingy in the red, the monster that works for the government and player characters. I don't know if we discussed this last week, but we had this idea originally that people are born with demon souls and instead of their own souls, and that kind of might mutate them into kind of creatures like vampires or werewolves or something like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that their mind is mutated. So if you're a vampire who was born in the USA, living in the USA, you're still going to be taking the Pledge of Allegiance every morning. You're still going to be go through the same indoctrination. So why wouldn't you be, wanting to serve your country? But I do have another idea about this, and that's that the monster in the picture isn't what you think. That the guy on the right is just a serviceman, and the monster is actually the glowy orb. And essentially, it's a kind of loose soul or a loose spirit, which is sapping life essence out of him. But at the same time, because there's so much wild magic just pouring back into him, it's causing random mutations in him. It's altering him as it kind of drains him.
Oh, that's a very good idea. Because you've sort of on this blasted battlefield, so the idea that there's sort of soul's energy around or floating around is great. And also if it's mutating people, we can sort of tie in the whole vampire and zombie myths and things like that. Yeah. So it sucks out life energy and mutates people. I like that. Josh, you've got some thoughts?
Going briefly back to something we touched on last week about the third faction, the Dead. I was thinking these battlefields are going to be saturated with the ghosts of the dead, people who have died in these battlefields. What if this serviceman is deliberately gathering the loose energy that would saturate or just be running rampant around these battlefields? What is he if he's collecting it for the dead? I believe he's some kind of collector. So he finds this energy, stores it in himself, or into a more containable form, using his, as you can see in the image, the way he's drawing it into a sphere, using his hands, and then transports it back to the faction for energy.
Yeah, that's an interesting, and those two sort of ideas work together in that we've got sapping energy and collecting energy, and it really suggests that, well, energy moves around and that you can control it, which sort of fits in with a lot of our ideas. So then that suggests character classes and things like that, doesn't it?
Just had another thought. It might not even be for the third faction. It could just be, hey, we've got this vampire lich who can contain energy. Let's draft him into the good guys' army, and well, go recycle the energy that we've used. It could be a recycler still.
Yeah, because if we're talking about a world where this energy powers stuff, they're going to want to collect it and harvest it. So yeah, that sort of all fits together. I really like that sort of idea that we make this all about the energy and sort of putting in things, taking it out of things. Gives a lot of scope for magic, especially if it's sort of some of it was sort of unpredictable and might sort of mutate things or require certain types of creatures to do this. Alex, you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah. Basically, I'm looking thinking maybe it's just something normal. With everything being powered by this soul energy, it could just be that he's an battlefield engineer and he's just trying to restart some kind of engine of war. But,
Or sort of almost like sort of quite a mundane thing almost.
It's just a general wartime victory of someone doing their job. For the look of him, while you're channeling all sorts of energy through you, you're gonna change slightly.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's the equivalent.
some kind of soul-powered tank or whatever. And he's just at
Yeah,
a hatch trying to fix it up after some kind of fight.
it's sort of like the equivalent of a guy standing there with two wires, with electricity arcing between them and his hair standing on end. It's just a bit more magical than that. And he's fixing a tank or something like that. I really like that because it makes the energy very mundane. And mundane things are things which are throughout society, and that's sort of what we want. We want this energy to be everywhere in society, which is why it has the fact that it comes from a dead and has strange effects is so important, because it's everywhere in society. So that's good. Mark, you've got some thoughts along these lines as well.
Yeah, kind of building as well, kind of the same idea of Alex of it's mundane work. I was thinking in his case, again, it's an engineer, but he's doing mine clearance. So we talked about the idea of, for example, the atom bomb being an kind of an uncontrolled summoning device. Say, if you scale that down to a much, much smaller level, you can make different kinds of explosives or things with it. So he's dealing with some unexploded ordnance. See those markings on his left arm? The thought I had there was, we talk about doing summoning demons and things like that, because that's what they think they're doing. We keep talking about souls, but they think they're summoning demons. You have this whole kind of idea of ritual circles and things like that. One of the things that people have found, if you draw your ritual circles on your hands onto the body, you can actually manipulate a certain amount of this by hand. Kind of like protective gloves, but just magical protective gloves, and thus he's handling the mine as he takes it away to be dealt with.
Yeah, that works because it fits in this normal everyday thing, and just gloves, effectively magical gloves, and he's controlling it, and because that's good, because that also suggests that there's unexploded ordnance, which makes these battlefields really quite interesting places to go. I mean, imagine sort of 1948. A lot of the stuff must still been lying around. A lot of battlefields still hadn't been cleared. I'll have to look into that. But you can imagine that there's sort of like quite dodgy places in this world where there's all these spirits around, plus all this spirit energy and unexploded devices. Pat, your thoughts? Mute microphone.
I was just reminded of, I don't know if you've ever heard of Sergeant John L. Levito. He was a United States Air Force loadmaster. He got the Medal of Honor because there was an incident where a flare went off inside his plane, and he took it in his hand. I mean, these things are burning at thousands of degrees, and threw it out of the back of the plane. I was thinking this could be something similar. This could be some kind of magical weapon that this guy is containing himself.
Oh, there's actually sort of starting to go off, or it is going off, and he's
getting rid of it, kind of thing. At great risk to himself, like throwing yourself on a grenade. Or...
Yeah, that sort of work, and sort of like with the picture. I was just thinking the book, is sort of labelled, so and so, Corporal John Smith winning his Medal of Honor. That sort of, always like those sorts of details in game books, because they just make it more real.
It's the lowest ranked military person to win the Medal of Honor.
Yeah. I don't know what that would be. I wonder what the first person, the lowest recruit, I wonder how soon after joining the army you could win a Medal of Honor. I wonder what the shortest time period is. But I digress. Digress even. Alex, you have some thoughts on tools and ritual components?
Yeah, I was saying that with it, we've got him as an engineer, and as engineering in this world is channeling the spirits and channeling this energy. But their pouches are just, full of, stones with runes on, so they can quickly assemble circles, various magical components that need in these rituals, and like is on his arms all sort of the runes and tattoos that would help channel it. So his, instead of having a box of wrenches and some wire cutters, he's got a couple of rune stones and some vials of blood or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you'd have a very interesting utility belt, wouldn't it? Sort of a cross between a sort of a priest and a magician. That'd be good. And Mark, some thoughts on stencils?
Yeah, I think it's kind of just a very small thing. It's what he was just saying about the idea of you have those little rune things to cast, but for the sake of kind of battlefield experience, they just have stencils of the various runes and symbols. They just spray them onto the ground as they go about and then kick some mud over them when they're done and run off.
Yeah, it's that real military idea, isn't it? Yeah, they've got, military has a handbook for everything and reduces everything down to its simplest component parts. And yeah, that's exactly what they would do. I really like that. I think a good detail. And Pat?
Well, I noticed the energy is flowing through channels on his arms, so rather than stencils, he could have tattoos. Which
Yes.
give him the kind of the spell.
Yeah,
Doing.
that'll be an interesting thing in sort of like if you sort of get posted to this unit and they say, right, okay, not only do you have to have the regulation army haircut, but you have to have these tattoos on your arms. That's a bit of a rough gig, really, isn't it?
Similar to the weird thing, the implant that they make you put on in when you join the army in System Shock 2.
Right. Not play that one. One interesting thing about this discussion is we haven't really talked about it as a monster. I mean, my initial thoughts about this picture is that it's either a soldier who's been corrupted and turned into some monster, and it would be something the players would fight or would challenge the players. But actually, I think practically all the ideas we've had sort of talk about it as actually being one of the good guys, and even sort of being part of a regular army and just an everyday job. So I think that's interesting. I think there'd be something to think about the setting. Is what are the roles of monsters in this setting? Are they going to be zombies and vampires and liches as these suggest, or are actually those creatures entirely mythical? Has anyone got any thoughts on that? Jay? Mark, sorry?
Yeah, I mean, when we originally came up with this, I kind of like the idea that we weren't talking about vampires and zombies and things like that, but we did have the idea, as Pat reminded us before, about the demon souls or other outsider souls getting into people's bodies if they've been born without a soul. But I like that. I like the idea of mutating to turning something else monstrous. But I think we should stay away from the traditional vampire, zombie, werewolf set and come up with our own things and make them kind of unique to this setting and different, because everything else of this is pretty unique. And I like the idea of then coming up with our own monsters rather than just kind of picking a few off the shelf, as it were.
Yeah, I think you're right. It would better reflect the setting. I think we need to make that conscious choice. Either we do entirely our own monsters, or we try to integrate our backstory with the traditional monsters and say vampires are a product of this energy leaking into things or something along those lines. And we have to make that choice. You can't really do it half-assed. We either have all the traditional monsters and an explanation, or we have none of the traditional monsters and all new stuff. And I think you're right. I think having all new monsters is a good idea. Alex, you have some thoughts on burnout?
Yeah, so a possible way for monsters to turn up could be people who are burning themselves out on summoning. They're channeling too much too fast, and whatever they're bringing through starts to twist and corrupt them. So, say it was channeling too much energy if you use something like aggressive souls, or what's meant to be aggressive demons as weapon energy, so was doing too much of that, and they start getting corrupted by that, and then start changing, and then go mad and crazy and run off and become the monsters. So a lot of
Yeah.
hunting down of rogue elements that were on one side but have sort of drifted off and become corrupted and burnt out.
Yeah, that will work well because it gives us a way of having monsters in the world with an explanation, as that they sort of become corrupted or whatever else by handling the magic. Actually, the thought which immediately springs to mind is we talked about nuclear energy, and of course radiation, limits of exposure and what happens when you're exposed to too much, and actually almost making this sort of treating the magic power along this lines is that, yeah, if you have an accident with this stuff, you get too much exposure to this. Josh, you some thoughts along these lines?
I had a very similar idea based off something called the Desolator from Red Alert 2 on the Iraq side, I think. Basically, it's a unit in Red Alert 2 which uses radiation as a weapon. Now, I was thinking, you've got these nuclear bombs which, instead of using essentially, as well I understand it, radiation to destroy places, they're using, thank you, Pat, they're using, what's it called? Spirit energy. So what happens if the victims of the bombs that are too far away for the initial lethal zone of the blast absorb this soul energy? And what if the soul energy is then very, very angry that it's been used for this purpose? So these people start generating and leaking this energy from themselves. They start becoming walking corruptors of the landscape. Very much like people who get a big dose of radiation sickness, but more generating the radiation from themselves. Like they basically become like a warp rift and start letting out the energy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, and ties to this idea that this magic is some form of energy. I've been giving some thoughts, because something Jay asked a couple of weeks ago is exactly how do people, what does this energy do? Does it create heat? Is it electricity? How do people actually make use of it? And I've been sort of thinking about this and had some ideas. And one of the ones I thought about is that whatever this spirit energy is, whatever we choose to call it, it gets absorbed into things, and what it does is it's a catalyst, effectively. It aids in the release of energy. So a piece of wood which has some of this spirit energy in will burn more intensely and faster. So if you put it into petrol, it makes petrol more efficient. If you put it into gunpowder, it makes gunpowder more efficient. And then I thought, well, if it's absorbing stuff, if it's about objects absorbing things, then what are some materials better at absorbing this energy than others? And I thought, well, do it on atomic weight. So on hydrogen can't absorb much of this energy, so it doesn't burn much brighter, barely noticeable. But something with high atomic energy weight, such as plutonium or uranium, can absorb vast quantities of this energy, and therefore making atomic bombs and certain things, nuclear power, a lot more effective. So that might give us a mechanism to have this energy, how it applies in the real world, and still have this strange energy. We can have these people collecting it, manipulating it with symbols and things like that we've all talked about. I don't know what your thoughts on that, but Josh, Alex has sort of commented about Bakelite in 1940s, because Bakelite is the wonder substance of the 1940s, and it just occurred to me, well, what if Bakelite could be sort of shielding? One of the weird properties of Bakelite is that it's like lead for nuclear energy, for radiation, and that might explain why that sort of works so well. So, Alex, do you have some thoughts on this energy absorption and objects absorbing energy?
Yep, sorry, just bringing Josh up to speed what he missed. Yeah, mainly it was just throwing out there just for sort of the flavour and the feel of it. You have the Bakelite stuff everywhere. And I was just sort of saying out things like silver is always good if you want anything channeling mystic energy, and quicksilver as well if you also want something particularly dangerous to play with.
Yeah, I mean that's I mean, there would be, again, as we can tie to some things of like the traditional magic ideas of magic, if that we have a scientific explanation which says, actually, yes, some materials do channel this energy a little bit better, and maybe through chance, historically, you know, certain objects have got more of this energy and had strange effects on people.
You could always have things like cold iron works, but as people added more to it, as they made alloys, that kind of properties disappeared. So if you wanted that sort of stuff, you need the old style cold iron to actually channel magic better than modern iron.
Yeah, actually, that some things old, some older technologies might be better than more modern technologies. Mark, you're thinking about uranium.
Yeah, I mean, we keep talking about this as sort of an allegory for the nuclear technologies, which kind of emerged at the end of the war. I think that's a really good end to push at. And I like your idea, Chris, about the you make it such that uranium and plutonium can store the most energy, or they're the best for transmitting that, because it kind of deepens the allegory really between them, and also particularly the ideas we're talking about being in the presence of too much of this spirit energy or too many summonings, for example, can cause problems. And also, in real life, radiation causes cancer in those very high doses. But in this case, we can have other mutations. It's more, so like spiritual cancers or things like that. It becomes more sanity problems rather than or physical health problems. Also, that. But I think it'd be good for us to try and keep to things which keep us to that link between the two. So instead of developing nuclear technology, we develop the spirit technology.
Yes, and that sort of, yeah, because it ties into a lot of the science going off, so we can still have people like Einstein and Rutherford doing their stuff, and it sort of connects because it's helping to understand the universe works, and that feeds into how they can develop this magical energy quickly and get technological progress out of it. Actually, we're coming up to 1/4 past. Does anyone have some more ideas, generally anything about this setting they want to throw up before we wrap up? Alex?
Yeah, just sort of think this is actually a particularly good setting to bring in all of the sort of strange rumoured stuff Nazis were doing during the war. Sort of a fun term is Gestapo. For things like things like looking for the Ark of the Covenant or the Lance of Longinus or Die Glock or stuff like that. So it just means you do also have a lot of sort of historical myth to draw upon.
Yes, no way would I ever use that pun, not unless I was writing a joke setting, but I do like the pun. But I think, Nazi tech, because we talked about some of the things about how the advanced tech had made World War II worse and sort of slightly changed the outcome. And I was thinking, well, if this energy makes things more efficient, maybe the Germans got some of their crazy planes to fly. You know, those sort of long-range mono-wing bombers and things like that, which were just on the drawing board. Maybe they could get them going with this magical energy. So yeah, we can have a bit of fun having sort of like some Nazi tech in there, but we don't want to make this game about because 1948 the Nazis have been defeated. We don't want to make, but we want to have its impact, their technology impacting on the 1948 of this game world. Wunderwaffen, yes, people who make puns, there should be laws against them. Okay, right, I think we'll sort of wrap up there for this week. I think that's been very good. Sort of, I've got some good ideas and sort of like fleshed out and pushed in sort of different ways than we've done on previous weeks on this setting. Now we need to talk about next week. We did say last week we weren't going to push further forward with this setting because we've got to sort of that point where we really need to start writing things down and make some definite decisions. And I don't think any of us are in a position to do that at the moment, so I think it's best we put this to one side for a while and then come back at it, and maybe we'll have more time and new ideas to do with it. So has anyone got anything they would like to talk about next week? Anything off the top of their head?
You just cut out there for a moment.
Oh, sorry, did I? Yes, so has anyone got any ideas? Josh, you seem to be pinging.
I certainly have an idea that probably won't take up a whole meeting, but certainly something worth discussing. I've been talking with Alex about our insect race, the Solidarm. They left their homeworld after some disaster. Now, the world isn't destroyed, it's just uninhabitable. I'm trying to think of a reason as to why it's uninhabitable. I mean, I had a idea, which was their main food source was altered at a genetic level, and they started taking over. It grew exponentially. No matter how much they did, it just wasn't enough, and they had to leave because there was no space, no other resources. Certainly, for a small bit of the meeting, it could be worth discussing what possible ecological or political disaster befell the Sudan that could force them away from their homeworld. And I actually read the notes, yes. I can't remember what we put, so this might be a moot point still.
Okay, so that'd be one. Yeah. So what disaster led to a race abandoning their planet? That'll be an easy one, but yeah, I'm not sure whether it would take up a whole meeting. But I think it's one worth discussing. If it's something useful to you, let's put that on agenda. Maybe we do 2 quite short things next week as a bit of variance. We will only put 1 out on the thing, so we'll do that definitely next week. And then as a sort of secondary, if we have time, depending how it goes, I was thinking maybe we'll do something really simple, like get back to the 66 magic and just put together a single path of a spellcaster. You know, let's say what spells should a spellcaster have, and actually start to flesh out a path. So we've got a couple of ideas for next week. That's good. Josh and Alex, we can sort out the details of your post this week via email. So if you're watching, do watch out for the post and find out what we'll be talking about next week. So that's about it for this week. I'll just hand over to Mark for some pluses and deltas.
Yeah, so we'll again make the way around, but I'll start with myself again. So pluses, good to see this kind of fleshing out, and I really like the range of ideas we came up with for that. Particularly the fact that we all decided it was actually going to be something good or something mundane. We didn't leap at the idea of, oh, it looks evil, so we'll make it evil. Quite like that kind of different way of thinking. And deltas, I don't know. The fact that we're not going to be able to keep focusing on this, and we have to go back to doing some other things like magic, for example, because I'd like to keep working on this, but I might do that in my spare time anyway. Pat, what about you? How do you feel about all this?
I'm happy with it. I think it's good. I don't really think I've got any deltas this week, to be honest.
Okay, universally positive response from Pat then. Alex. Alex.
When that works. Sorry, the touchpad much too sensitive. Pluses, they're good to actually be back and get this sorted. I did also like that we put up a picture for a monster and everyone else decided he was a good guy. That was quite amusing to come across. Deltas, tech stuff, as often happens, really. And having missed most of the meetings on this, don't know if I could contribute too much to it, but hey, at least I threw in a few things.
Josh, I'm going to give you a break from typing for a second, and what do you reckon were your plus points and delta points? Things you would change?
My apologies. So I thought I had muted myself, and my keyboard is very, very loud. So, pluses, really enjoying this setting. It's nice that we can get together and, even with just a simple image, create a very coherent sense of ideas. As for deltas, oh god, why is it so cold? That's the only real delta I have about this whole thing, is it's just been so damn cold recently.
Cold because autumn is coming. And if not done, Chris, finally, we'll finish it up before you can then do the signing off.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, my plus. Yeah, actually, I'm just going to cheat and echo other people and say, yeah, I love the fact that we came out with it's good guys, it's mundane stuff. I think it's very easy as game designers to go for the obvious stuff, all monsters, and but I think actually by focusing on sort of like the practicalities of the world, you can actually get a real distinctive world generated and something unique. So I really like that. And Deltas, I'm going to go with Josh. Bloody cold. For anyone who's watching and not in the UK, we are at the end of August. It's our bank holiday weekend, so our big holiday weekend, and it's been effing cold. I mean, I know we're British and we complain about the weather, but it really has been cold for British summer over the last few days. So I don't like that. So that's me done. That's all of us done. So thank you, Mark, for handling that. So right, we're done. So we'll be back next week, 7 o'clock UK time on Friday. We'll be talking about possibly a couple of ideas on what destroyed a planet and possibly fleshing out a magical path for a spellcaster. So that's it. And from all of us, see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.